Hogstye.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the Hogstye. We are recording on May 21st. It's a Saturday. It's the middle of the off season. It's the dead times, folks. I feel like I would start a USFL podcast, but no one's watching the USFL anyway. So I don't know who has less fans in the stands, the USFL or the Washington Commanders.
That's a close one. I just recorded the next It's Just Business show, and we actually did XFL and USFL ratings, and there have been USFL games where nationally broadcast on ESPN or ABC that get 200,000 viewers.
Yeah.
So the USFL is doomed to failure, like all of them.
Yes. And Steve, I don't know if I'm sure you haven't watched, but they'll have games with less than 200 people in attendance.
Oh, that small. So yeah, Washington isn't that bad.
No.
200 people.
Well,
yeah.
And I kind of brought that up because the first thing I wanted to talk about, it's actually a hidden two-parter. I didn't tell you guys about the second part. First part,
okay. Be surprised.
The Washington Commanders have upgraded their seats at FedEx Field. They're now putting in these weird mesh seats, like hollow mesh. Look way more comfortable than normal stadium seats. I'll give them credit for that. They've only put in 2,000 for some reason. But it's another lipstick on the pig move for FedEx Field, which, I guess you got to try. But
you're going to dump raw sewage out and you're going to dump raw sewage on fans and have them fall out of the stands. But by golly, 2,000 of you will have slightly more comfortable seats.
So they should put the mesh seats where the sewage dumped out, Steve. That way the sewage just goes right through the seat.
As a make good. Well, it's a make good, too. We'll give you a little bit better seats since we don't poop on you.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. So
I can't remember what they said. Alex, maybe you can help because I saw the picture or I saw the tweet. I can't remember which one I saw, but they said it was like an exclusive thing.
Right. It's a luxury
I can't remember
seat.
What it was. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Are they stupid enough to think people will actually go for that con? My God.
Well,
I mean, a luxury seat. First of all, okay, maybe it's slightly more comfortable. It's not your grandpa's easy chair.
No.
Okay, it's still just a stadium seat. I mean, if anybody's, first of all, you shouldn't pay a dime for tickets to this team. But if you're going to, don't get suckered into luxury seat because at the end of the day, it's just another stadium seat.
Right. And look, you've been to high-end ballparks, whatever team, doesn't matter. If you go to like the luxury boxes and they have those like, it's not leather, I think it's pleather chairs most times, but they'll have much nicer seats up there. I get that.
I've been in luxury boxes that didn't have nicer seats.
Sure, I have too. But the recent ones, they're putting very nice seats in the luxury boxes.
Yes.
So that I get. This is a little weird to me. But the real reason I want to bring this up, Steve, what do you think people are paying for those seats?
Some god-awful, exorbitant amount.
$400 or something for a
I don't
game,
see. I don't know
like
what
probably.
tickets even cost anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't have a good frame of reference, but like double.
Yeah. So the reason I mentioned that, I just paid $400 for a seat. And I paid $400 to buy a seat that was at RFK Stadium because they're starting to sell those. So you can take them home because they're going to rip down RFK. And a lot of people said that's a lot of money. I expected it to be that much. So I've always kind of had that money set aside for this for like 10 years.
See, that is something I've contemplated for a long time.
Yeah.
I might have to think about that one because I've got some money, some throwaway money that I've been waiting, but I've been holding it for a guitar. So what would I get the most enjoyment out of, a guitar or a seat? Or a part of a guitar or a seat? That's the question.
Right.
I'd love to have one, though. Of course, I don't know what I'm going to do with it.
I mean, honestly, I'm going to have to rearrange my whole office and just kind of sit it behind me somewhere. It's an artifact. It's not a chair.
No. Jamal, we cut you off because I know it's hard for you to see since you're on the road.
No, it's good. I was about to ask Alice, how did you even know that they were selling it? Like, did they publish it like on Twitter or like the news or something? I didn't even know that they were selling seats.
Rick Snyder posted about it yesterday, and
Okay.
he was complaining. He's like, I wouldn't spend more than $100. I'm like, well, I would spend more than $100.
Well, for that matter, who is selling these seats?
It's a third party that is selling them. I'd have to look it up. I think they're.
Let's give them a plug by all means, because
Yeah,
that
yeah,
is
yeah.
pretty cool.
1 second. Let me just pull up the bill that they sent me.
$400 is a lot, though. I'm cheap, so I don't like
it is a
spending
lot.
that kind of money.
But quite literally, I've been kind of waiting for this for 10 years. The company's called Archer Seating. They sell surplus stadium seats from all around the country, if you go to their website. And RFK is the newest one. So, you know.
Weren't those seats like yellow?
Orange.
Orange?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They're orange. You have to pick them up at the stadium, just so you know.
Oh, well, that ends that for me.
Yeah. Well, Steve, if you really wanted one and you ordered one, I'm sure I could help you out.
Yeah. But then it would cost a fortune to ship it here, and
Oh yeah, I can't imagine shipping that would be very cheap.
No. I may have to do without, but it's a very cool thing. If in the right circumstances, I would do it.
Yeah.
Of course, is it a chair that can set on the ground, or is it just like the seat
well, here
part?
I'll share my screen. Yeah, they like put feet on it.
Because the audience loves to see this.
Yeah. They put feet on the thing, so you can see it right here.
All I can see is a painting of RFK Stadium.
Oh, that's weird. It's not scrolling down to.
It is not.
How weird.
And of course, our audiences who's listening to this can't see anything,
right.
So perhaps you just show it to me later.
Yeah, okay. I'll send you a picture. But basically, yeah, the RFK Stadium seats were, drilled into the concrete. So they created a little, like a little platform for it to sit on.
Interesting.
Is what it
Maybe
looks
it could
like.
be a nice patio chair. How about that?
If I had a part of my porch that was covered, I would consider that. That's not a bad idea.
Well, it's not like it hadn't been rained on.
True.
And it's plastic.
I don't want it worse. I don't want it worse, Steve. I want it to stay as is.
It's a very cool thing.
Yeah.
Should they ship them? Yes, but whatever.
Yeah.
But it's cool.
I'll send you the link later. You can maybe call, see if they'll ship them. I have to go in November and pick one up. So.
Well, that's I have to get past my inherent cheapness of not wanting to spend $400 also.
Yeah. Well, look, you've got like some cool memorabilia. You have like a Joe Gibbs signed helmet or something, don't you?
I don't have Joe Gibbs, but I haven't spent a dime on any memorabilia. All this stuff I have has been given to me personally.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you bought any of it yourself.
No, I didn't buy any of it.
Yeah. Jamal, what about?
And nor have I paid any fee to get anybody's autograph.
Oh, okay. Jamal,
I'm gonna say you've been very fortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a family connection to somebody once, and
Sure.
And a military connection. Sometimes these guys would show up at Andrews to do stuff,
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Didn't they used to practice at Andrews once a year or something?
They still do that.
Yeah.
But more often than not, the team would send somebody to like the base exchange, which is the department store on base, and that kind of thing. So it was a combination of that plus the family connection I had was the other thing.
Right. Jamal, what's your cap? Would you spend $400 on that chair?
Well, given I honestly have no connection to RFK from the person, like the real side, I wouldn't. But if I was a person who grew up in that stadium, and obviously when you grew up in the RFK, you had tons of memories, like good memories. It would be worth a good investment if I was that person who collected memorabilia. Absolutely, I would spend $400. Fellas, I've spent money on shoes that's pushing $400. I spent like $300 on.
It sounds like you don't have children.
Yeah, I actually don't.
Yes.
But like I haven't done that. Now I haven't done that part in a while. Like I've done that when I stayed at my parents' house. Like, I haven't spent $300 on those shoes since I done moved out. But
there you go.
Yeah, like I've done that before. But it's always something to think about. So if you people that's listening, if you are a person who's interested in like that memorabilia stuff, hey, go for it.
Yeah, when you have a house and then families and kids and stuff, you find your discretionary income goes way down no matter how much you make.
Yeah.
Because they're all spending your money.
Well, in my case, the house actually helped my discretionary money because the cost of rent in this area was so high that when we bought our house, my mortgage was less than rent. So,
but for me, if I could remember what seat I sat in for the 82 NFC championship game, 82 season NFC championship game, which I was there. If I could remember that, I would like to buy that seat, but I don't have the ticket anymore. I have no idea.
That would be so hard to even if you knew, I'm sure it'd be very hard to pull off.
I mean, it's not impossible. My father may have those tickets. I don't know. I don't remember because I'm sure he didn't give it to me. You know, I was just a little kid then, so he may have them, but probably we've also moved 18,000 times since then. So I would like to have that. That would be cool.
Yeah. Oh, and honestly, if you just knew the number, all the seat numbers are kind of like getting the same number would even.
But the point is that
I get it.
That one.
Believe me, there's a hard nostalgia thing. I get that.
Yeah.
You know.
Because otherwise, it's an uncomfortable seat that's going to look bad in your house and not match and all of that.
Oh, exactly. It's not going to match anything. It'll look tacky, but for me,
it is tacky.
It is tacky. I'd rather spend $400 on that than a jersey for this team.
I'm not going to spend 5 cents on a jersey.
Yeah, you know, team. But
I have to like the team to do that.
Yeah, well,
and the other thing is, I'm not a jersey guy.
Yeah.
The only jerseys I've had, I think I may have Darryl Green, but the only other jerseys I've had have been players that get mad at the team and leave. Of course, that's most players. So even if I wore jerseys, which I don't, and I like this team, which I don't, I'm still loath to buy jerseys because I'd always be afraid because I'm cheap. I'd be afraid I'm wasting my money on a player that's going to be gone in a year.
Also, jerseys are not that comfortable. I don't understand people who wear them all the time. Like, it's generally just not a comfortable thing.
Well, the other thing, and there's kind of a generational thing here, because I'm not going to wear a jersey around a guy who's 25.
Yeah.
He's like 20 years younger than me. I'm not doing it. Yeah, I'm not doing it.
I would rather buy like a Riggins or a Green or a Monk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
The only guy who I might buy from the current team would be Tress Way, just for the comic value of having a Tress Way jersey.
I saw a Corey Lichtensteiger jersey. I went to see.
You mean you saw Corey Lichtensteiger?
No, I saw his brother. Actually, because I went to a Houston Texans game. This is years ago. Still the Redskins. Corey Lichtensteiger was the starting center.
Right.
And I saw a guy wearing a Lichtensteiger jersey like 5 rows ahead of me. So I went up to him. I was like, "Look, man, are you related to him or what?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm his brother."
That's the only people who should ever wear Corey Lichtensteiger.
Oh, I know. That's why I figured that has to be family. Man was a big dude too. On top of this big guy.
Yeah.
And so it was his brother.
I honestly I love that when family wears that jersey. You know,
of course.
That's always
because I thought there just can't be anybody on the earth that has a jersey from the center.
Right.
Unless it's somebody related to him.
I mean, do they even sell centers? Like, if you're an all-pro center, I don't even think you'd find that jersey on Fanatics.
I mean, I'm sure his brother gave it to him.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm sure it's an authentic, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay, so why don't we talk about the next topic, a real topic?
Okay.
I thought that was just fun. I wanted to, surprise you guys.
You wanted to brag about dropping $400 on a piece of plastic.
Wood. It's wood. Thank you very much.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yes. They're so old.
I'm going to say congratulations to Alex. That's what I'll say.
Well, if it's wood, you can't leave it out all the time. I thought it was plastic. It was plastic. You could leave it out.
Right. Okay, let's talk about this story that came out, not today. What was it? 2 days ago. Fandom Analytics did a ranking of the fan bases of all 32 NFL teams. They looked at things like attendance, social media presence, the team's performance and payroll, a whole slew of metrics that they, put together and ranked all 32 teams. And guess who comes in at number 32? Your Washington Commanders. I'm going to emphasize the "der" for a while. Just, makes them sound dumb.
Is anybody surprised? I don't know what the Twitter reaction was because I don't do that anymore.
I think the reaction was, yeah, okay.
Well, I mean, is anybody surprised? I mean, they've had, 10 people in the stands for a few years and, 7 of the 10 are the opposing team.
Right.
They've changed their name, which was, even if you could deal with changing the name from our beloved Redskins, basically nobody liked the name they changed it to.
Right.
They have an owner who's a total train wreck.
Yes.
You know, so it doesn't. I mean, I expected that, and I figured that would be the case.
Yeah, and all those things were indicated in the articles. Why is Washington so bad? Why have they gone from being the third most popular sports franchise in America to this? And they listed all those things. They had a great line in there that I thought I would just a quote that I'm going to repeat here. The Commanders feel like an expansion team that started off by offending their entire local market.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I love that. I read
Yep.
that too.
Yep.
It was one of those things, Alex, where I was trying to post our content.
Yeah.
You know, like what came up on the screen when I opened Twitter
was that.
Yeah, that thing. So I read the article, and I thought it was a pretty good quote too. Is because that's pretty much what happened. It's an expansion franchise, but
not
aside from the sycophants out there, and you guys know who you are, the hog farmer types of the world, and nothing against them, but they're sycophants.
Oh yeah.
You know, and again, God, you know, do whatever you want. It's fandom. I'm not criticizing, but other than those guys, they have offended the entire city. You know, it's another along the lines of that news channel. It was the WUSA 9 story we did a couple weeks ago. Same along those lines.
Yep. I mean, I think we all kind of know where that is and what's going on.
I'm just curious. So you didn't see anybody, oh my God, we're better than this, and any of that kind of attitude?
Other than a few sycophants like you mentioned, and even them, not really. Most of the sycophants kind of just kept quiet.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. Like, so this article, help me out because I'm unfamiliar with it. The article was about fan attendance in the stadium,
well, it was written by a college professor, and what he did is he took a bunch of different statistical measures, such as fans in the stadium, such as social media presence, and a variety of other things, and came up with an objective ranking. So it's not a subjective ranking. It was numerical. What I read did not publish the numbers. But again, it was things like number of followers, you know, on social media, number of fans in the stands,
number of
TV
comments.
ratings and comments. And so it was his way of objectively quantifying fandom.
I assume purchases of gear and things like that.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
So, and this was recently. The study was done post new name.
Yep.
Oh yeah, it was published this past week for you guys listening.
No, so all right. So just to be specific, I'm only asking these questions so I can help myself with my response. But I'm just trying to figure like when it was published recently, but I'm saying like when was the study done, or was the study done literally like after the name was done?
Well, I mean, one of the quotes in here was they've offended their fan base with their name, and so by that very nature, he's saying it was post name change.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Okay. That's an assumption, but I think all in all, I don't know. It's hard, man, because I heard you and you obviously Steve and Alex talk about the name and the offended of the fan, the name with the new name, excuse me. And I mean, it's hard, man. Some people weren't really that invested into the name itself. Like for me, I personally, I mean, obviously, y'all know it, I still say Skins. Like I say Redskins. I call them the Skins. Like whatever is easier in the context of the conversation, I don't care. I don't say football team no more. I still call them the Skins. I still call them the Commanders. It's interchangeable to me.
Yeah.
And I think that from another perspective, when we talk about that, the actual subject at hand, not necessarily the name itself, the subject at hand I can understand it. I think that when you try to like pigeonhole or box it in based on those type of that type of data is kind of different too. Like for example, at one point Washington was the Commanders when they came out. I don't know how long it was because I didn't really care to like look into it, but at one point for a period of time after the name change, they were one of the top selling teams merchandise wise in the league. I think they were number one specifically. I just don't know how long it lasted, but I say that to say like I don't know to what degree like the study is like concrete because it's hard to quantify the concrete, but I do understand based on what you all told me that is his opinion.
Well, no, it's not
based
his
on
opinion. It's
no
it's
no
it's his ranking based on an objective criteria. So you can disagree with the criteria, but I think what is fair is the numbers he took are just the numbers. So I think the objective part is
no
are the criteria he used, is that fair?
no. Yes, I agree with that. His opinion is what I'm saying is what he inserted to the cause of them being 32. Like one of the things that he said was he what's the quote again about the name change? What was the quote that he said?
Well, he said the
About
name
the
change
name.
was poorly received by the fan base by and large.
Yeah, that's an opinion. That's an opinion right there. It's not necessarily based on fact because again, there's people like me who I just stated that don't really care about the name itself. When it comes to the team, it's about the team. Like there's people out there like me who think like that. So that's why I was saying like that.
Well,
That
that's his
itself,
analysis
not,
of the data. So yeah, that's
that's his.
opinion.
That's his.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's
by
all
the
I'm
way,
getting at. That's all I'm getting at.
who we're talking about here is Emory University marketing professor Mike Lewis, who's on Twitter at Fanalytics with Mike Lewis, at Fanalytics Mike. And then his website, he's apparently got a podcast. I haven't heard it. And then he's got a website that's fanalyticswithmikelewis.com.
Yeah.
So since we're talking about it, check it out. That's where it is.
And secondly, think about it too, because my bad, Alex, but think about it. Like, I don't disagree with the ranking itself or whatever, but again, when we talk about that opinion part, Washington was one of the Redskins, like 2019 up until 2019 and prior years before the name change thing even happened. Washington wasn't one of the better fan teams in the NFL either. Like that was before the name change. So that's why I'm like, when he's saying the name change soured the fan base, that's not entirely accurate because we sucked before the name change.
But it's gone way downhill.
Jamal, he does say that, it's been 20 years of dropping. He's been analyzing this for decades. So
like that's all I'm saying. Like there's some statements in there that were opinion, and then obviously if he's mentioning the 20 years again, 'cause I haven't seen the article. I'm only going off what I'm hearing. So if he mentioned that, that's also good because it's important context. So it's real good. It's good that he put that in there.
I mean, he definitely put that in there. He said at the beginning they were a top 5 to top 10 franchise. They were somewhere in that 5 to 10 range when he started doing this analysis, and then now they're 32.
So
he's been doing this for. Okay, I got you.
He's got one criteria called fan equity. It says the fan equity metric uses the home box office revenue as the market outcome. That's one. Social equity metric is based on a team's social media following. Social media following is another metric of fandom. Okay, then he's got talent equity, which is apparently
That's
a new metric.
That's actually a good guest to get on the show. We should try to get him on.
Yeah, maybe I'll do that. Yeah, I'll get a hold of him. In general, it says in general, brand equity can have multiple effects. Traditional consumer marketing brand equity may provide value to increase loyalty, etc. Okay, here it is. The talent equity metric examines the team's ability to outperform their payroll investments. Okay, clearly Washington's terrible at that.
Yeah.
And so it's measured on a combination of the three, but the talent equity is only 5% weighted. So it's 95% weighted towards his fan equity and the social equity measures.
And then the 5% is towards team's performance, basically.
For performance compared to amount spent.
Right. If you're not spending a lot and you suck, no one's surprised.
Like the New York Yankees would have a pretty low talent equity because they've been mediocre aside from past year or two.
Yeah, so, exactly.
Yeah. Well, I'll try. I will try to get him on.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic. Well, I don't really think there's much else to add about it. It's not surprising that they'd be that low. There's just been too many missteps lately. All right, why don't we move on? The other topic, analysis thing we want to do. D'Angelo Hall went on 106.7 and said some things that, stirred up the hornet's nest. Among them, he said that, he doesn't know if Ron Rivera is the guy to be the coach for this team long term. Likes him as a coach and a person, but he doesn't know if he's tactically or all there. Like and if you look at Rivera's record, he's been kind of middle of the pack most of his career, so that's not surprising. Hall was specifically talking about the Eagles and how they keep on making moves to load up, and how the Washington football team, Commanders, Redskins, whatever you want to say, is basically just sitting around twiddling their thumbs. And I think that's the bigger issue with what's going on, of course. But a lot of people freaked out when they hear that D. Halls doesn't have faith in Rivera, which I don't know if that's fair or unfair. But
Ron Rivera is a charismatic guy.
Yeah.
He exudes something that people like.
Leadership.
Exudes leadership, and he came in to this team and appeared to take charge immediately in a terrible time. He had cancer and it didn't bother him at all.
Right.
It's all of that. But I have said since they hired him, and I think, Alex, you have too, that if you really look at his results in Carolina, they're pretty mediocre. Mm-hmm. And when they won, that was when Cam Newton, who was an all-pro level quarterback at the time, was really at his zenith, So I kind of get where he's coming from. That having been said, the front office of this team has been such a total disaster between, Bruce Allen and then Vinny Serrato, and it's like a race to the bottom with those two. So I think Ron, maybe he's not Bill Belichick, and D'Angelo's right about that. I think D'Angelo's not giving the team enough credit for finding someone who's a legitimate, non-embarrassment football guy. And I think that's a step up when you're the Redskins or Washington.
Yeah. Look, it's fair to say Dan Snyder takes a gamble. And look, he's had more success with the coach kind of leading the show model than he's had with the, GM. Like, even though I believe in the GM model way more than the coach model, Dan Snyder's history has been more successful when a coach leads the way.
He's hired people who are borderline criminals as,
yes.
as GMs.
Yes, that doesn't help.
And they're not really criminals. Don't sue me. It's just a euphemism.
Yeah. Well, you said borderline, Maybe
I don't know about that, but yeah, I mean, certainly I think that's true.
Yeah. I just don't know if Rivera's that kind of coach.
No, like D'Angelo said, the team isn't evolving. It always stays the same. He criticized the assistant coaches a little bit, which we've done on this show.
Right. One of my favorite things to do.
Yeah. And so I think he's not wrong about that. I just think that part of growth from complete disaster is establishing a professional league, at least league average identity. And at least on the team perspective, not in the front office, they're a train wreck, but from the team perspective, Ron Rivera has done that. Because even in like the Jay Gruden era, you always got the sense that he was never really in charge. He didn't really have a lot of authority, and it just became a mess, halfway through.
Yeah.
But Ron has changed the team's identity in that regard, and that's a needed, necessary step. And I don't think D'Angelo's given quite enough credit for that.
No, I think that's fair.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's fair. I just think one of my underlying gripes with and it's not just our fan base, but I'm speaking, excuse me, let me be more specific. It's not just our community, because it's not always the fans that do it. It's media members as well who have a bigger voice because they reach people quicker. It's media members as well. I think when people talk about change in the organization, yes, Ron's job is bigger, but still at the end of the day, for a head coach, you have to establish the culture, but you also have to win games too. And Ron has done that to an extent, right? It's not necessarily pretty, 7-9, 7-10.
I mean, his winning percentage is about the same as all of our other Washington coaches.
Yeah, it's about the same. And it's truthfully around the number that he was at in Carolina.
Yep.
Like it's all similar, but I think at the end of the day, when you see change is when you start seeing winning. Like when you see consistent wins up there, and I think back to what I was getting at. I think when people talk about like the small steps to winning, not necessarily you, Steve, because I'm just saying this happens all the time. When people talk about like the micro steps, like I think it's like we're so used to, you know, the way it's not supposed to be done that we're like, oh, look at this small step that they took to show that they're getting better, and that's okay when like you see the progress on the field too, but it doesn't matter if ultimately when you do these things and you're not necessarily producing on the field as well. And what I mean by that, like think about 2021 and the people that they brought in to to help continue winning and building off of a 2020 season that seemed promising. Sure, you have some injuries, but prior to the injuries hurting the team, you were 2-6, and when you got on a 4-game win streak, things went your way, but ultimately, like there was still opportunities in which, the team got blessed, and that's okay as well. But I just think that all in all, when you're winning on the field, I think those are metrics that you can't deny. Like those are the reasons. Like you could do everything in the world off the field and in your philosophy and in your culture to say that this is how we're going to do things. But if you aren't producing on the field, it's like those small wins. What does it all add up to in the end? If he doesn't have a job here in like 3 years, like
and he's gonna have to win, to stick around. That's much is clear. I think his weakness. I don't think he's an elite talent evaluator.
Mm-hmm.
And Rick Snyder put one of his little 2-minute videos on YouTube that I watched, I don't know, yesterday, kind of talking about this. He's been kind of average in the draft.
Yeah.
The Jamin Davis pick was just a bad pick, and there's been others. And every team has hits or misses. I mean, you can't have a 100% success rate, but he's not been any better. And what Rick was talking about was, the groupthink in the front office, because he's in charge. Ron is everything. Whereas even if you go to like the 80s Redskins, well, Bobby Beathard shoved players down Joe Gibbs's throat,
mm-hmm.
right? The Showtime era Lakers, Jerry Buss forced players on Pat Riley, just to name a couple. And
right.
Here it's Ron is opinion is everything. And what Rick's point was, that may not be necessarily the greatest thing when he's not a personnel genius. Even Bill Belichick has had a bunch of bad drafts. Bill Belichick is too egotistical to ever accept a GM, but he might do better with a GM who can focus on it. Because especially with a guy who has cancer like Rivera or is recovering from cancer, he's got a lot of work to do. He can't focus all his energy on players. He's got to coach an entire team. Mm-hmm. So it makes me wonder if having Mayhew or Hurney or, just do it and not necessarily have to answer to Ron might be better.
I mean, look, I think, the proof is I think we have enough proof now to say, if this draft class doesn't have a couple guys like show up, they might need to make that move. Because Rivera's a very good coach. I don't
know if he's a very good coach. He's an average coach.
He's very good in the, he, keeps the team even keeled. He doesn't, even when he left Carolina, you didn't hear he had lost the locker room after all that time.
No, but Jamal's right, though. Yeah. At the end of the day, he's got to win.
Yeah.
Which he hasn't so far.
Right. But, he's not going to pull an Urban Meyer. When I think of a bad coaching situation, you're not going to see that kind of leader, toxic.
Oh yeah, situation. Well, he's not going to kick a player. And,
yeah.
Like Urban did. Urban never should have been there. That was a stupid hire.
Right.
It's like like one of the things that it's like one of the like when Ron had just got in, right, and like one of the things that, if y'all remember, when Jay Gruden was around, one of the things that they always said was, "Oh, they got this ping pong table in the locker room, and all they do is play ping pong." And one of the first things that Ron did when he got in here, he saw that ping pong table, and he said, "Get that shit out of here." And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, do y'all think that the ping pong table is really distracting the players? Like, do y'all really think that that's a problem? That's also a form of bonding. But in the same vein, I didn't care about the ping pong table. It's just like, why are you notating? Why is the ping pong table such a big deal that you have to notate that Ron Rivera got rid of it? And in a part to establish his culture. Like, it's all these small things that sometimes people think about. And I just wanted to, like, that was one of the original examples. Like, they made such a big deal of that with Jay Gruden when he was here, and how the players, used that joint. And now they brought it up again when Ron first got here, and talking about how he got rid of the ping pong table. Like, there's other things around too that's fogging my mind right now.
Yeah.
And that wasn't just the first example, but like, they just notate these small things and they call it a win. And it's like, how many times did people think about the ping pong table when they lost 18, or excuse me, what is it?
A lot.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
And they lost a lot of games.
Yeah.
I think Ron, as a coach, I think his offense is far more vanilla than I thought it would be. And the talent he's added, like Curtis Samuel and some of these offensive linemen are in either they just haven't worked out very well or average. And defensively, I think they've made a series of stupid personnel decisions that have hurt them. But again, it's not nearly as an aggressive attacking defense as I would have wanted. So I'm not sure that, just from a pure coaching perspective, like on the field, if he's really all that great. It's not a disaster, but look, it's average, you know?
Yeah. I think, when I said when I was saying he was a good coach, it's the other stuff that he's good at. It's the off the field, not necessarily his X's and O's leave a lot to be desired.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I don't know if there's really anything else to say about that. Steve, you wanted to do a salary cap update?
Okay. Since we're doing nothing but killing time here, folks.
Yep, we're just trying to kill time, and then we're going to finish up with the defensive tackles after that.
I did update the salary cap. It's on our webpage. Alex, before I forget, we need to change the heading to 2022. It says 2021. Yes. But they've signed all the draft picks but Fedarian Mathis and Percy Butler. Those are the only two that have not been inked to contracts. So that's good. And if you want to, so Josh Doxson's contract, I'm not going to read them all, but to get the top one, I said Dawson again. Dang.
Yeah.
I said Josh Dawson, as a matter of fact. Jahan Dotson, his contract, 4 years, $15+ million. The whole thing's guaranteed because it's a first round contract. And his cap hit this year is $2.7 million. And it goes up to $2.9 million 2023. And then 2025 it's $5.2 million. So it doesn't really get onerous. Really, 2024 is $4 million. So it's a very reasonable cap hit number and all of that. So that is Dotson, and they go down from there. Now, if you want to talk about groups, which I do.
All right.
So the defensive line group, now that they've made all their cuts and everything, the defensive line group has a combined cap hit of a little under $40 million, $39.4 million as a group. It used to be obviously higher than that. And that includes big numbers for Jonathan Allen. Deron Payne is $8 million. So, and then Chase Young is $9 million. So that's that. Obviously, they're spending hardly any money on linebackers. They've got $12 million for all the linebackers, middle linebacker and outside linebackers. The corner group is enormous, $31 million. The safety group, when you take Collins out of it, he's technically there still, but if you take him out, they'd be at about $8 million, which is still, it's not a small amount, but okay. And let's see, any other group have a ton? No, and the other groups are kind of average. But so total, and then you got about 2.4 million in dead money here still too. So total, they've got about, I have it a little over 5 million of space left if you include the remaining portion of the rookie pool, which is basically Phil Mathis and a tiny bit of Percy Butler. So that, and then 7.7 without the rookies. And then if you want to discount Landon Collins, if I can flip back up to Landon Collins. Oops, I went too far.
This is his post-June thing?
Yeah, so he's going to save 15.7 and count 3.8 under the dead cap. So you got to add a little under hand, or about 11 and a half, almost 12 million to that. And so they're going to end up with, 17 million in space, roughly.
Okay.
Ballpark.
That's not too bad.
Yeah. Which means, by the way, all those people, the fans were craving them to sign. They really could have signed them.
Yeah.
They could have pulled this off. If we didn't talk about Bradbury going to the Giants. I never thought Washington was going to sign him. They already have 3 big money corners. They're not going to add another one.
Right.
But some of these free agents, they could have done something with offensive line, linebackers. They did have the money to do this. They're just choosing not to. Because I could design a contract for Terry McLaurin if they hire me that has a reasonable cap number in year 1.
Sure. And by the way, I mean, odds are it wouldn't impact him this year anyway. It would.
No.
Yeah, it would be next
Probably
year.
Not. Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, while Steve, you were doing that, I updated the dates to 2022.
Awesome. See, that was my OCD was making me go crazy.
Steve is doing, cap numbers. I'm updating the website.
That's what we've always done, though.
Yes.
That's our role.
Yeah, that's how we've always done things. All right, why don't we move on? Let's talk defensive tackles, because that's what we're talking about today. So the defensive tackles column that I had to write, because no one else wanted to write about defensive tackles, that'll come out next week. As you guys
this week when you're listening to it.
Yes, this week as you're listening to it. So to quickly break down what's been going on with the defensive tackles, a lot of turnover, as we all know. Sounds like there's going to be more turnover in the near future with Daron Payne probably not getting re-signed long term. The big thing, of course, when Carson Wentz came in, the team had to cut Matt Ioannidis. They let Tim Settle walk. Both moves, I think you probably had to do one. Doing both, in my opinion, still questionable. I question the wisdom of losing both your good backups. And we'll get into why in a bit. The current roster, obviously we got Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne as your 1 and 2 this year. Those are going to be your starters. They went and signed Phil Matthias as the backup.
Mathis, by the way. Okay, but go ahead.
What?
It's Mathis, but continue.
Mathis, sorry.
Yeah.
Phil Mathis is your backup as they draft him in the second round. You got to assume they're hoping he can become a starter if they're planning on moving on from Payne, which means they're going to have to spend more draft capital on a backup next year. So that's a whole thing. Behind that, though, you really have Daniel Wise, David Bada, and Tyler Clark all kind of fighting for that last spot because you're not going to keep more than 4 defensive tackles on the roster in all likelihood. So you've got, a couple guys who Bada's been here for a while. He's that, what is it? International program. That's what they call it, right, Steve?
Yeah.
So he's here from Germany.
It's the International Pathway Program.
Yes, that's right. The Pathway Program. He played in Germany on some, minor league level, rec league level. I don't know what you even call that. The German level.
It's like I think it would be the equivalent of like a semi-pro.
Yeah, that's what I call. Fun fact: when I was looking into him, his football team in Germany were the Unicorns, which I never thought in a million years you'd have a football team called the Unicorns.
No, because I'll shut up. I was about to get myself in trouble. Never mind. Continue.
Yes.
Proceed.
But I thought that was just a fun one to, put out there. Bada was here last year. Wise was here last year. Played it in 6 games. He was one of those guys that filled in when everyone started going down with COVID. And then Clark is an interesting one. He played for the Georgia Bulldogs, had a good college career, and left in 2019 and has never made it really with an NFL team. He's 23. I think he spent some time with the Chiefs, and I only think that because the picture they use for him on NFL.com, he's got a Chiefs logo on his shirt. There's no record of him doing anything with the Chiefs. It's one of those weird things.
He maybe spent 5 minutes with them.
Yeah.
Signed today, gone tomorrow.
Right.
Washington did that this week. They signed an offensive lineman, Tyler Higginbotham,
right.
I think it was, and then he was gone like the next day.
Yeah. It's basically he came in for a workout and it didn't work out.
Yeah.
Which I didn't mean that as a pun, but it just kind of happened. That's really the gist of what's gone on with the moves at defensive tackle. But I think the more interesting thing about this discussion with defensive tackle, with all these changes to the back of that part of the roster, losing Ioannidis and Settle, they might have been better players than some starters you had at other positions, quite honestly. Like, they are both better defensive tackles than our third linebacker was last year. They were both better defensive tackles than probably our nickel corners were at times. So as a result, Washington ran a lot of 5-man fronts last year. 5-1-5, they ran some 5-2, and those are some old school looking, defensive looks. I will be very curious to see, do they keep doing that now that, they've lost those two talented players that were kind of filling that role. And then the other thing is, the amount of snaps that those two guys took together was the equivalent of a starter. Just so I did some quick numbers. Over the last 3 years, John Allen averaged 767 snaps a season. Deron Payne, 825. Those two guys averaged 796. So they're basically the equivalent of the other two starters. And it went up and down last year. Ioannidis was hurt, so Settle got more. Settle didn't play as much one year. Ioannidis got more. That is a big void that we need somebody to fill in. And that's going to be the interesting part about the defensive tackle group.
Well, Alex, first of all, Matt Ioannidis is now in Carolina.
Yeah.
Was it difficult for you when he moved out of the house? Did you help him take the stuff out of the bedroom? Did you drive him to Charlotte? How was it for you?
Funny.
Well, no, he went to, hang out with Matt Rule. It's an open thing,
It's a swinger situation.
Any Temple guys, it's a swinger situation. Yeah. Former Temple guys, I should say.
I'm going to be sued by Alex for the defamation. Yeah, obviously I've disagreed from the jump about how they manage the talent pool in the defensive tackle group. Nothing against Phil Mathis. He'll probably, be fine. He looks to me to be kind of a space heater type, which they need. But, they could have kept one of either Ioannidis or Settle. Both of them performed at a high level.
Right.
And as Alex said, I agree with him in saying they could have started on other teams. Ioannidis was, the bigger contract, but Settle was more versatile than you might think.
And neither of them have an outrageous contract anyway.
No, especially Settle particularly. So I think they should have kept that. And who was the name is escaping me. The linebacker that was drafted in high in round 2.
I'd have to go look it up.
Dean?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. One way or the other, that he would have been more valuable to the team than basically replacing one of the defensive linemen you intentionally let walk for no good reason. At a minimum,
Anderson?
him, but there were two of them. One of the guys, D'Angelo Hall mentioned.
Preston Smith.
No, I'm talking about this draft.
He's talking about draft pick. He's saying drafting a linebacker in the second round would have been more valuable.
And so instead of having to fix the hole that you created, you could have spent a second round pick. Maybe you had to trade up a few spots or whatever, but you could have fixed the middle linebacker problem.
Yeah.
Instead, what you had to fix the problem that you created for yourself, which I thought was dumb. And in terms of, I think the group itself obviously is very top heavy because these guys you were talking about, Daniel Wise and Casey Toohill and David Bada. We don't know anything if they can play at all.
Yeah.
And so if the top 3 guys go down, they could be in trouble because all the other guys that they've got seems like 1 million pass rushers.
Right.
But they don't have 1 million defensive tackles.
Right. And they're not built. I mean, now that we're running more of a 4-3 look, even though that's, questionable at times.
Yeah.
Your defensive ends in this look can't move inside full time. You just don't have, they're not big enough. So, there's not that level of versatility anymore, which is tricky.
I think I agree with Steve when he said I think it's a reasonable and very good argument to be made. Like they're trying to, replenish a unit that they already, they had they had depth at, and I think it's a byproduct once again from the Carson Wentz deal. That kind of started those ripple effects. When it comes to the interior defensive line, Deron and John, I think, are in a pretty good position this year to continue building off of last season from a production standpoint. Fedarian helps them in that aspect. And I don't know, put it this way, I don't know exactly what the production will look like altogether from a unit, but I think I understand their vision based on, picking Fedarian Mathis. I think one of the things too, that I posed this question to I forgot who I talked to. I think it was I did an interview, yeah. So I posed this question. I'm like, y'all gotta understand too, when it comes to Fedarian, you never know what other real time boards look like draft boards. You never know, and who's to say that Fedarian wasn't a first round player on multiple teams boards. Nobody ever knows the true value of a player from an outsider's perspective. Nobody really knows. We're all guessing based on if you actually watch the film, and people who actually do draft boards. I don't do draft boards. But when you actually watch the film and you put together the draft board, it's your draft board. And the only way you can really get a real guesstimation of where somebody can go is if you have access to general managers or personnel members that's actually involved with teams. There are some people who can get a guess of where somebody can be, a more educated guess. But in that same vein, you never truly know from an outsider's perspective. So when people say there was somebody in particular who made me question this thought, and it was it was a terrible pick. You could have got him in the 5th round. I'm like, and that was even exaggeration. But even still, if you say 4th or 5th, I'm like, who's to say he wasn't going to get picked 10 spots later? Because his agent directly said that. She said that there was a chance that he could have got selected 10 within the next 10 slots. So you're stuck with betting against the agent. You're stuck with betting against other teams and saying that he'll be available at pick 98. You're betting against all of that when you really, really want a person who is versatile in terms of his alignments and his ability to defend the run. I think you're betting against all of that. So I say all that to say, that defensive line is gonna be a top heavy rotation. But in that same vein, I think Fedarian is going to be a good addition in terms of what they can and can't do on that defensive line. I think that 5-man front is going to look really good. I think that situationally he's going to help Jamin Davis and Cole Holcomb be more productive and look better versus being exposed to take on those blockers, take on the offensive linemen, and they'll probably have a little bit cleaner looks at the quarterback or even the running back. So I just think that it's all dependent on their vision. I see their vision. I don't know what the true production will look like until they get on the field.
D Hall was talking about Nakobe Dean, by the way, who went in the 3rd round to the Eagles.
Oh, okay.
Nakobe Dean.
Yeah. And then, that's a guy who could have helped, I think, more. Quay Walker, who went 22 to the Packers. There's another one. And so I just
I really did like Quay. I did like him.
Yeah. Oh, I did too. So they had options, and it's just weird to me, the things that they choose to do and ignore.
Yeah.
I just don't understand their roster philosophy, I guess.
Yeah, and now look, I do understand to an extent you don't need to be 4 deep at tackle necessarily. So moving on from one guy, as I said, made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
It just, and you know what? I probably would have kept Settle. As much as I am an Ionitis fan, he was younger. He was
that would have been good at home for the home life, Alex.
But I mean, regardless of that, it is just going to be hard to figure out because we don't know how ready Mathis is, and I think we can assume that these other guys are just going to be your like 4th guy, emergency starter, like somebody's hurt, come on in guy. Because I think they're just going to go down to a 3-man rotation. That's my assumption.
Probably that's my assumption.
Yeah. As opposed to what they've done in the past 4 years, which is all these guys played a lot.
So I just think overall, did the defensive line group get better?
No.
From last year? No, it really didn't. At best, it's going to be the same, probably slightly less capable as a whole.
Yeah, just because you won't be as deep, so the guys will be tired more likely at the end of the game.
And I said defensive line, I meant defensive tackle.
Right. Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if they do like try to target somebody, some additional interior defensive linemen. To y'all point, because I don't think 3 is sustainable, but I also think that they need some more. I don't know exactly who they'll target like post June 1. I don't know. Maybe they even wait till training camp to get some cuts and add some people to that defense as they make their final 53. Because there'll definitely be some interior defensive linemen available once those cuts happen, because there'll be some surprise cuts too.
Yeah, I'd be A-okay unless one of these other guys flashes, which who knows, maybe they will. If they decide that they want to bring in like a veteran, like a 33-year-old defensive tackle journeyman type to be that backup, that would be probably a smart move, honestly.
It's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah. Veteran depth is not bad. Relying on veteran depth for everything is bad, but 1 or 2 guys like that is always helpful to have in the locker room. That you can just say, all right, we trust him for, when somebody's hurt. But yeah, that's the defensive tackle group. I mean, like you said, Steve, at the top, it's not a lot of change. And I think that we all kind of can trust Allen and Payne to do their thing. I mean, Allen had a ridiculous year last year. He made the Pro Bowl.
He did.
He had 9 sacks. Statistically, it was his best season, I think. So.
No complaints about Allen. I mean, he's top of the heap.
Yeah. So.
All right, that's it. So next week we're doing edge rushers, which Jamal, this is your on-air warning that Jamal is writing the edge rusher column.
Okay.
But that's where then we're going to do quarterbacks, linebackers, and then DBs. That's what's coming up in our position group breakdown.
Fun.
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, I think that actually wraps up this show. We're right at an hour, so that's fun if you have fun with time.
We had to stretch it out by talking about stadium seats, but we got there.
Yes. If you want to know the real truth of why we put random stuff like that in the front sometimes, it's just because we need to stretch it out.
It's not as random as it seems.
All right, guys. We will talk to you all next week. Hope you enjoy it. Enjoy this nice hot weather we're all getting all across the country. I was complaining about it being 95. Steve's like, it was 99 down here. So he beat us.
And we didn't even notice.
Yeah. All right, guys. We'll talk to you next week.